Hello, welcome back, and as always, I hope you're doing well. Right, before I start off, guys, I know in the last video I made 10 things about The Big Boss. I said The Big Boss was filmed in 1970.
Are you serious?
And I got that completely wrong. I mean, when I'm working on these videos, I listen to loads of audio commentaries, and it was on the rambly bit at the end of the video. And unfortunately, something that Bay Logan said on one of his Hong Kong Legends audio commentaries kind of stuck with me.
Bruce Lee arrived in Thailand on July 23rd, 1970 to shoot The Big Boss.
But it was filmed in 1971, but we knew this anyway. So, apologies for this. Hopefully I won't do the same thing today. So, today's video, we're talking about Game of Death 1978 version. As you know, I've got pretty mixed feelings, not too good really on this film, but I have watched it a couple of times with more audio commentaries, so hopefully I've picked out a couple of bits and pieces you may not know. So, without further ado, here are 10 things about Robert Clouse's Game of Death that you may or may not know. 1. Jan Spears. The director Robert Clouse wrote the script for Game of Death under the pseudonym of Jan Spears. Jan Spears, eh? Interesting. I do wonder why he done that. It could be just to separate the director from the writer, but normally if Tarantino does a film, it says written and directed by. Or maybe he didn't want to get the criticism because obviously he's nothing like Bruce Lee's original idea. And as we all know, Bruce himself didn't really have a clear idea what he was going to do. When he got into the Dragon, it thought, result, it gives me time to think about a plot outline for the whole movie. But yeah, Jan Spears. But we know it was you, Robert. We know it was you. 2. Unhappy Chuck. Chuck Norris was initially eyed for the role of Steiner, played by Hugh O'Brien, but rejected the offer. He further expressed his intent to pursue legal measures against Golden Harvest, objecting to the attribution of screen credit to him in this film. Norris is only featured in archival footage originating from Way of the Dragon. I quite like Hugh O'Brien's character. I knew I recognised him. He was from the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito movie, Twins. He was one of the dads. I quite like him as Steiner in the film. Not particularly the fight at the end. I mean, he does look a little bit odd fighting Billy Lowe. And apparently, Golden Harvest got sued or settled to Chuck Norris. I mean, that is ridiculous. Literally, it says, with Dan Inosanto, Chuck Norris clearly on the opening credits to the film. Incidentally, that bit was paused in the UK back in the old days of the censored versions, because even seeing Dan Inosanto in that little circle swinging the nunchucks was a big no-no. It was literally bonkers over here. 3. 5 Billies. 5 different actors played the character of Billy Lowe in the 1978 version of Game of Death. Bruce Lee from the original 1972 footage, Kim Tai-chung, Chi Yong-po and Yuen Bu doing all the Bruce Lee acrobatics, and of course Chris Kent supplied the... Bruce Lee was asked if he would do the body doubling for Bruce Lee in this, but he turned it down, saying it, it was Bruce Lee's movie and he really didn't want to do that, which is quite surprising when you think about it, because he's probably the most famous for doing biopics that all contradict one another. But an interesting bit of fact, I'm not too sure about the Chris Kent war cries either. 4. Dan's return. Dan Inosanto stood out as the sole cast member from the original 1972 footage filmed by Bruce Lee, who returned to film scenes for the 1978 version of the movie. Now, I've always wondered why Dan Inosanto went back to do the 78 version, because I've got so much respect for Dan Inosanto. I love Dan, and think about the money Dan could have made on the back of, no one knew Bruce like him, on the back of Bruce Lee's name, and he didn't. He carried on doing his martial arts school and one thing and another. And what makes me feel comfortable about Dan going back, because he is the only one, he wanted the footage out there. And I suppose in Dan's mind, you know, the only way to get this last bit of Bruce Lee footage, and I don't exactly know what Robert Klaus had access to, but I mean, it's nothing. It's the most limited amount you could possibly get out of it. But that's how I like to think of Dan regarding this. I mean, he was great as Pasquale, but that's how I like to think about it. You know, Dan just wanted this footage out there to keep Bruce Lee's legacy going. 5. Tragedy. While working on the movie, Gig Young, who played Jim Marshall, met his 5th wife, Kim Schmidt, who worked as a script supervisor on Game of Death. In a tragic turn of events, merely 3 weeks after their nuptials, the couple was discovered deceased in what seemed to be a murder-suicide involving Gig Young. I wasn't actually sure where I put this bit in because it is an absolute heartbreak. I mean, they was just married for 3 weeks. Gig Young apparently suffered with depression and alcoholism. He seemed to just spiral out of control, but what a tragic ending. Like I said, I wasn't sure whether to bring this up, but it is an interesting fact. It's a tragedy, but it's still interesting stuff. And I've been watching a little bit about Gig Young and his career. Such a shame. 6. Roy Chow. When Billy visits the Chinese theatre, the actor playing the part of his uncle is Roy Chow. Roy Chow also played the Shaolin Abbot alongside Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. He was in Enter the Dragon. Apparently he's a very good helicopter pilot and he's got an amazing voice. But yeah, not all of you might have noticed that. Billy's uncle is the Abbot from Enter the Dragon. 7. Night and Day. When Billy infiltrates Dr. Land's lair under the cloak of night, a discrepancy arises during the intense duel between Bruce and Kareem. A blow sends Bruce crashing through the pagoda windows, revealing daylight and scattered clouds outside. This continuity error is further compounded when moments later the pursuit of Dr. Land resumes and darkness has once again descended. I mean, that is just bonkers. Talk about continuity errors. I mean, not only that, prior to Billy getting to Dr. Land's hideout, you know, the restaurant, it was pouring down with rain when he was fighting Sticks. It was raining cats and dogs, and then all of a sudden, it stops. Bizarre. 8. Chi and James. In the original 1972 footage filmed by Bruce, Chi Yun and James Chen, together with Bruce himself, battled their way up the pagoda. However, in the 1978 version of the film, Chi Yun is absent, and James Chen's role is significantly reduced to a brief appearance as Charlie Wang, who met his end at the hands of Kareem. Despite this, during the climactic battle between Bruce and his adversaries, Ji Hun Jae and Kareem, the lifeless forms of both Chi and James are distinctly visible in the background. But yeah, they didn't even hide Chi Yun's body and James Chen. And if you follow the storyline, when Gig Young talked about Charlie Way, how long was his body there for? 9. No credit. Ji Hun Jae, who plays the second guardian Bruce Lee battles in the pagoda stroke restaurant, gets no screen credit in the 1978 version. I mean, they give Chuck Norris a credit and they just use archive footage from Way of the Dragon, but Ji Hun Jae worked on the 72 Game of Death. He's clearly in the 78 version of Game of Death. Why not put him in the credits? Wrong. 10. 3 endings. The film presents viewers with 3 distinct conclusions. In the US international cut, the film transitions directly to a montage of credits following Dr. Land's fatal descent. Conversely, the Cantonese edit adheres to the cinematic regulations of Hong Kong at the time, depicting the police apprehending Billy Lowe after Dr. Land's demise. Meanwhile, the Mandarin rendition sees Billy Lowe making a getaway on a boat alongside Anne Morris. I do wish the Cantonese one had the audio of Gig Young, Jim Marshall talking to Billy Lowe and Colin Camp. I do wish there was that. And it's got completely different music as well on the opening credits and the going off credits. And I've known about the police coming to arrest him for years, but it's nice to actually have high definition footage of that. So yeah, there's 10 things. Now I'm going to give you a couple of other bits that I picked up that I was going to add. And I think the elephant in the room, for me, and it still bothers me when I see it, is the real Bruce Lee's funeral at Kowloon Funeral Parlour. I mean, that to me is an abomination. They should not have done that. Oh, I didn't mind the crowd so much when you see all the crowd outside, but to actually show Bruce's body in the casket just leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. And as long as I'm running a YouTube channel, you won't see me show that. It's just, imagine how Linda and the kids feel or felt every time they see it, or if they went to the premiere and see that. It's just wrong on so many levels. I don't know what they was thinking. Also, another thing that I notice every time I watch it, right at the beginning after the Chuck Norris fight, when they stop filming and the light falls out the sky, someone throws Billy Lowe a towel, and he holds it and he rubs his face like that. I mean, talking about 5 inches away from his actual face. What?
I know.
Also, another little bit of fun trivia. There's a character that's in a lot of martial art movies, a Chinese stuntman from 1981, Jean-Claude Van Damme's Kickboxer, and Jackie Chan's Armour of God, and he's called John Ladowski, right? Now, when Bob Wall is fighting Sammo Hung, that's inside a set in Golden Harvest, massive set, one of their biggest, you know, with all the crowd, and there was a load of Japanese there. They wanted as many people brought on. Well, apparently John Ladowski, and you can actually see him briefly, he was hired to be one of the photographers, but he was getting money for getting people on the set, so he soon got sacked. And Colleen Camp, within 5 years, not only did she make Game of Death, she made Death Game in 1977, and then in 1982 she made Deadly Games. Game, Death, Deadly Game. It's mad. What? I used to have a bit of a crush on Colleen Camp. I'm over it now. My feelings towards Game of Death are very, very mixed. On one hand, the suit is nothing but iconic, but now we've got The Warrior's Journey, the GOD, Redux, and now this final Game of Death, which to me is the best one we've had. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like John Barry's score, and I do like the opening credits by John Christopher Strong III. I mean, I think they're great, but they're not like the other Bruce Lee films. There are some good bits about it, it looks great and all that lot, but on the other hand, it's just poorly made, poorly put together, and I think the beginning effects that they done in the trailer, towards the end, they couldn't even be bothered to hide his face. Just lazy. Just, to me, it's just lazy. So, did you know all this Game of Death trivia? Let me know in the comments down below. Have I got all these things correct? Don't want to get it wrong again. Right, guys, I'm moving my office into my spare room next door, so I may over the next few days not be able to put out a video, but bear with me. It's going to be better because I'll have a proper room for recording. This is in my little office, and I'll have this office to do my editing and all that stuff in here. So bear with me, I might not get a video out for a few days. So, but fingers crossed, I might be able to pull something out of the bag. But I've got a lot of work to do. Right, before I go, if you like this sort of thing, maybe give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It don't cost you nothing, and it does help me out. Thank you for all the likes, comments, all of them beautiful things, and of course to my wonderful Patreons. All of you guys are amazing. Have yourselves an amazing week, guys. Much love. I'll be back with another ramble real soon. You take care now.